don't move. And John had walked out and he was actually standing on the crust of the shit in the lagoon. And John rode home in his underpants. Melbourne and Metropolitan Board of Works. Anything to do with water, sewer and drainage. The structure and the facilities the Board of Works had was enormous. They could do anything.
Oh. And as I lifted it up, I just got showered with shit all over me.
Well, it's probably where the saying, "I've dropped the borry," came from. Every tradie had a driver.
Do you think you came from a slightly more privileged generation?
The clients now look at websites. The two bits that they're interested in is what do you do and what have you done?
Two of the most important things, particularly for service-based businesses.
A thing called Xero and Aeroflow and all these platforms that we just didn't know about.
Yeah. You skimmed over a little bit, is that the losing of the Southeast water contracts.
There's always a silver lining to everything.
Yeah.
There is always another opportunity the next day.
The Melbourne Waters, the Yarra Valleys, that there is a mandate on apprentices.
Yeah, but that's part of the problem now with the structure of the industry itself, and that is
Now, I speak to many tradies that say they've never advertised at all. And I think it's pretty awesome that you can get a ton of work from just word of mouth. But it's super rare to find a tradie that's been in operation for over 30 years and really never had an online presence. So in this episode, I speak with Noel McKay from Jonoco, who in 32 years really hasn't seen the need to advertise, but more recently has diversified, and we talk about some of the online tools that he's using to do that. Plus, we talk about things like apprentices within the water industry and how we need to diversify to make sure that there are people that can do the work and continue having water coming out of our taps. So I had heaps of fun. This is right up my alley. I love the water industry. So I hope that you enjoy it too.
Noel, you bloody legend. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much, David.
All right, I told you we're going to come in with some hard hitting questions. I do like to do this at the start.
Yep.
Obviously, you've been in the water industry for some time. By the look of you, like 50, maybe 60 years or something like that.
Yeah, coming up close to that.
Coming up to that. What is your favourite? Doesn't have to be about yourself. It can be about someone else. But being in the water industry for such a long time, generally you've got a poo story. Tell me your favourite poo story.
Mate, I've got a couple of them.
Yeah, go. Give it to me.
One, a particular bloke who had to get down to unblock a pump one time, and the only way for him to do it properly, he thought, and the safest way was, he had no wet weather gear, no waders or anything, so he stripped off down to his Reg Grundies, hopped in and unblocked the pump.
In the wet well? Waist
deep in shit.
No.
Yes. Yes.
Are we allowed to say who it was?
No, I won't, because he's actually still working in the industry. There was, and one other, I used way back in Border Works days, we're down at Werribee, and on the lagoons there, we're working on a cubicle, and it was I think a level sensor cubicle or something. I was an apprentice.
Yeah.
There was another apprentice, John Vazeneth, or Vazeneth, something like that. Anyway, Big John, he's a big bloke. Anyway, we're there working, and we're working with our boss Sparky, Lou Martone. Anyway, Lou's in the cabinet working away. Anyway, he sticks his head around and looks and says, "John, don't move." John had actually walked out. It was summer in the afternoon, and we were beside the lagoon. And John had walked out, and he was actually standing on the crust of the shit in the lagoon. And he was about 2 metres from the bank. And Lou's called out.
It was hard enough to walk on.
Yeah. It was solid. He's walked out onto it. Lou shit himself. Don't move, shit. We've got to get you back. John panicked, stepped, took one step, but because he sort of started to run, broke through the crust. And then that day we had to drive home from Werribee all the way to Preston. John's clothes had been thrown out. There was John, myself and Lou sitting in the front of Lou's Mazda van, I think it was, or something like that, a Mitsubishi Express or something, stinking hot and smelling like shit, and John rode home in his underpants. So I've got a lot of underpants stories.
I absolutely love it.
There you go.
I've got one. Can I tell my one? This is
Yeah.
a recent one from me. Right?
Yeah.
So there is a pump station up in the hills. It's actually a lift station from a pressure sewer. So quite a lot of head on this when you pump. And there was a malfunction with an upstream valve. And it blocked. And the pressure relief valve exploded inside of this building. So I went there because there was an alarm. And I saw all this shit all over the floor, stunk like it was gross, right? So I thought I'm going to open the roller door because I want to air this thing out. Well, all of the shit that had exploded up on the roof from the pressure relief valve had sat in the grooves of the roller door up the top. Oh. And as I lifted it up, I just got showered with shit all over me. And I just stayed there. I did the job, and because I toughed it out because I'm a Sparky.
Yeah, I don't know about that. That's what we had fitters for.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned the Board of Works. Now, for those uninitiated, can you tell us what MMBW stands for and what the organisation was?
The real or the gossip one?
Both. Give us the real one and the gossip.
All right. The real one was MMBW, been around, I think, in the end before it changed, been 125 years or something.
Really?
Yeah. It had been around for a long time, and it was the Melbourne Metropolitan Board of Works.
Yes.
So anything to do with, it had been built over the years, anything to do with water, sewer and drainage. So somebody was smart enough years ago, 100 years ago, over 100 years ago, where they built big sewer mains, so Fanny Street and all of these, because they're ones that collapsed after a long time. But they built all of this for Melbourne when Melbourne's population was stuff all. And with the population now, a lot of these mains are still in operation because they're big enough. And that was to get all the sewer because somebody, and it was a bloke called Borrie, which there's a lake at Werribee called Lake Borrie.
No way.
Yes way.
That is a very ironic name to have.
Well, it's probably where the saying, I've dropped the Borrie, came from.
Do you reckon?
I reckon it is because Borrie was the man and he was one of the ones to establish Werribee as a ideal place to have a treatment plant, all right? And it's true, and Lake Borrie is the wetlands down there, named after, I don't know, I can't remember what his first name is, I've seen it before, but yeah Mr. Borrie, and I reckon that's where the saying came, I've got to go and drop a Borrie. See?
That is hilarious.
Yeah.
Let's go with it, even if it's not.
And I reckon it's pretty true, but yeah, it had been, the MMBW had been around for 125 years, I think, because I think I was there when they celebrated that. What amazed me after that is that was to 1990, I think, when it changed its name to just the Board of Works. So
it was officially changed to the Board of Works.
It became privatised and a corporation. And that,
Well, we'll get to that.
So that all changed. Yeah. But I reckon they've changed it probably, what are we now, 24? So in 34, 35 years, they've probably changed the name about 3 more times. Because that's how we keep a lot of people employed in the publicity area, is just keep changing names because you've got to issue people with new mugs, new coffee mugs and new glasses with engraving on it, new clothing, because you've changed the name.
It keeps me employed. Next time that you change your name, I get to do another podcast.
Bingo.
So you said it was the official name. What is the unofficial name or rumour?
MMBW, Melbourne Metropolitan Board of Works, or Many More Bludgers Wanted. Because that's...
Do you think that's fair?
You have to go back to the Board of Works. So the Board of Works, because it was a government instrumentality, whenever there was high unemployment, places like the Board of Works were told to take people on and employ them and give them jobs. So as an example, as an electrician driving around, I had a driver with me.
You had a driving you?
Yeah. So it was great. We'd go out to a job in the morning, I could have a sleep in the van and he drove me out. And most of the guys who were drivers, they'd come from the tunnelling crews and stuff like this. So they'd come from the capital works crews.
Yep.
So they were supposedly unskilled labour, but some of them were really good too. Some of them were fantastic as far as they could read your mind. The good ones, you'd be sitting working and it was like being a surgeon. They knew what tool to hand you before you asked them I need my strippers. They'd be handing it to you.
So they were a TA essentially?
Virtually, yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
But not unofficially?
Construction CMWs, construction maintenance workers, I think they were called, that's what their title was, their role. Some of the people, like those guys, a lot of them would come out with immigrants, come out probably after the war sort of thing, looking for jobs, and a lot of them worked on, they got jobs in the Board of Works. And then, as I said, the government would instruct the board, and in those days the SEC, gas and fuel.
Yep.
So every tradie had a driver.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, that brings us to, where do you sit? When did you begin your apprenticeship in this whole Melbourne Metropolitan Board of Works thing?
Some people say that I started my apprenticeship before electricity was invented.
I would say, I was going to say it, but I thought, I've already...
Okay, that's untrue.
Yeah, okay.
Started my apprenticeship when I was 16 and a half. So that was back in, 79? And at that time, I'd actually gone for a job at Ansett.
Ansett?
As an electrical mechanic.
And for the young blokes listening, Ansett is?
It's Bonza Airways 30 years ago. So
it was sort of a budget airline, but not, went under.
It was back in the days where, if you went to Tullamarine Airport, there was International in the middle, and there was Ansett and TAA. They were the two local airlines.
Okay,
so
gotcha.
which both of them now are defunct.
Gone.
Yeah. But so I'd applied at Ansett because I always wanted to work on planes. That was it. Yeah. So, and I've thought about this podcast, and I'll probably let something out that nobody I've ever worked with knows.
Okay.
So, went for a job at Ansett, and at the time, my grandfather, who was a butcher, he was working at the Board of Works. He was working in the drafting room because he was getting close to retirement, and he picked up a job there because he had a butcher shop, closed the butcher shop locally, and then he got a job at the Board of Works. Anyway, I was looking for what else I was going to do, got told to have options. Anyway, a very good friend of our family, bloke called John Zinzarella, he was the apprenticeship coordinator at the MMBW at the time. And he said to me, put in for a job here, you need more options. So I said, I wasn't really interested, but it was an electrical mechanic again. And my intention was, if I didn't get at Ansett, I'd do it with the board, but then after a year I'd go and have a crack at trying to get back into Ansett again. Anyway, Uncle Johnny, because he was a very good friend of the family, as I said, that's the bit nobody knows. He passed away years ago, but nobody knows, the bloke who was the apprenticeship coordinator at the Board of Works was Uncle Johnny to me. He used to come and have Christmas lunch with us.
So you essentially rode the coattails of your uncle to get into the Board of Works?
No, he made me apply, which I was very thankful for historically after that, because I applied in those days too. When I went for the Ansett job, Ansett had two positions for electrical mechanics. They had 1,004 applicants for it, for the jobs, for two jobs. And I missed out because
insane.
I got down to the last five, and the two that they picked, they had to pick them on something. Well, those two played golf. At that time, I didn't play golf. Either did obviously the others, so missed out.
You are a mildly good golf player as well, from what I've been able to
no. It's all done with smokes and mirrors. Best club's the Adidas wedge. So that was getting into the board. I got an apprenticeship with the board, went through all the tests and all of this, started it and loved it. It was absolutely magnificent. And I fell into the water industry, but as an industry to work in, it has been fantastic. The variety, the people we've got to meet, there's been some real crackers.
Yeah.
But also too, just the variety of work. You're never bored. This is back in the days where we'd start at the depot and you'd hop in so you get out and your driver's already been out there and the truck's already warm in winter, heater's on and everything, and it's all ready to go, and he's made sure that everything's in the back ready to go. So off we'd go out to the site, and because you'd leave from the depot, by the time you got to site, then it was morning tea. So you'd sit down and the driver would go and put the billy on for us and have a cup of tea.
So for the tradies listening that get up in the morning, start their own car, and drive to work. It's freezing. They work their ass off. Do you
True.
think you came from a slightly more privileged generation?
And that's probably the bit when you say about what the board was like.
Yeah.
The board was overstaffed. What they should have done was maybe let natural attrition take its toll. Because a lot of the people who were there were getting on in age.
Yeah.
Most of the drivers were old, and they were. But the board just looked after them, you know what I mean? But if they'd have done natural attrition, it would have been, they could have changed it. But then the big drastic change, obviously, is when they decided to privatise it.
So we're getting into the 1990s, 96
Correct.
or 5?
92.
Oh, even earlier.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So give us a rundown for those that don't understand what happened during that period. It was pretty devastating and still, in my opinion, has fucked the whole industry.
It did. I got very excited when Dan Andrews bought out the last one and he's bringing back the SEC.
Oh, yeah, right.
Yeah, and I'm still waiting. I haven't heard anything about it, so I thought maybe SEC comes back, Board of Works will come back. Because I could handle that. I could get into that for retirement.
Wouldn't that be great?
That'd be good.
Well, what happened during that period?
That was, in the sell-off that they decided to do, then they decided that it would be going to contractors. And what amazed me was we had a guy who was in... So the section I was in at the time was maintenance at the Board of Works, and we had one of the bosses there, mechanical guy, Mick Thompson, top, really smart operator. Anyway, Mick worked out that, mate, we've got all these workshops, we've got smart people, we know what we're talking about. So he started to outsource the Board of Works people on a 12-month trial to see whether he could make it financially viable. So we started doing work. Owen did work up in Sunbury, and he started doing pump repairs, getting them shipped to Melbourne. So they work on them at Brooklyn because they had fantastic facilities. The structure and the facilities the Board of Works had was enormous. They could do anything. They had their own safety, had their own rescue team in South Melbourne.
Wow.
This is where, like, confined space entry stuff that people talk about now. Yeah, Board of Works had their own rescue crew based at South Melbourne.
Wow.
Because everybody working in sewers, if there was ever an event, bang, the emergency crew would go out.
So just so I'm clear, these facilities, so this is after when privatisation
That's before privatisation.
Okay, gotcha.
When it all got privatised and cut up, then they got rid of all of the things that they wanted, that they thought was over the top or a waste of time.
Okay.
And this happened, Board of Works, SEC, gas and fuel, all the same time.
They just ripped the heart out of Victoria.
Well, the stupid part was the government are telling us, oh no, we're going to sell it off because we're losing money keeping the Board of Works going. It's costing us money, you know, let's sell it off. If something was going to be bad and not make money, why then were there so many international companies tripping over themselves to get the contracts?
Exactly.
Was to make money, because they're international companies. They're not going to come here and lose money. They'll come because it's a fruitful venture. And most of them turned it around and turned them into fruitful ventures.
Yeah.
So, and that was when contractors came in, reduced staff numbers, because that was one way that they could do it. And that was required in a lot of places.
Yeah.
A culling. But that was when we decided, well, it was when, just earlier than that, I wanted to get out, work for myself. That was the objective. So, because you've got to remember, the Board of Works, so when you went to Preston Depot or Mitcham, I think Brooklyn was the same, Southern, when you went to the yards, they had their own panel beaters, they had their own auto electricians. The vehicles were serviced by Board of Works people.
You had everything in-house. What else?
Yeah. So when you wanted fuel, you drove to Preston Depot, you drove down, there was a fuel bowser there, and you fueled up. You're in the Board of Works depot.
I imagine that would have been abused massively.
No, it wasn't really.
Really?
It wasn't, yeah.
Wow.
Well, not that I can remember, but yeah. So
you had
you
a
drive in,
panel beater.
yeah, auto electrician, carpenters.
Chippies.
Chippies, oh yeah.
What for?
Oh, mate, you see some of the boxes that our instruments were kept in.
Yeah.
The chippies who made them, they're works of art.
They made
and they're
them.
still around now. You've seen the old stuff downstairs.
You've got some amazing memorabilia downstairs. It's like a
Okay.
museum. It's beautiful.
Well, it is, and there's a lot of old farts here too that aren't part of it. I'm going to get a couple of them stuffed as well.
Yeah.
But like the Mega,
Yes.
there's an electric-driven Mega down there. It's on a beautiful board and all of this. That was built by the Chippies.
Wow.
Yeah. Nearly every trade was in the Board of Works because it was self-sufficient. There wasn't all these places around to go and buy stuff. We had our own store. So you didn't go to, Allen H or Middies as a wholesaler. You went to the electrical store and filled in an MSN. So it was a movement of stores notice. So you had an MSN pad and you'd fill in what you wanted and your boss would read it and he'd countersign it, take it to the store, and the storeman would give you what you wanted.
Wow. So
that got abused.
Yeah, I can only imagine. Holy crap. So essentially what you've got is that you've got this Board of Works that is government-run organisation.
Correct.
And arguably, the job of the government is to try and make sure that other people are employed. So I think it was... The fact that it wasn't profitable was just a byproduct of being an essential service.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
And then Jeff Kennett's come along, 92, and said, we need to break this up because we want to sell it off and make money. And his government at the time did do that and made money for future governments. Yep. And then, when does Jonoco come to play? When did you guys start?
So, in our group, I was based out Northern Maintenance Section. And there was a lot of different sections, so you got to know different sparkies, people like that. I had started before that working weekends and doing foreigners.
Ooh.
Yeah, so, and being in the Board of Works, there was a vast amount of people that wanted electrical work done at their houses. Ceiling fans put in or down lights, because that was really cool. They were new things in the 90s. And this is 1990s too, not the 1890s. You get in.
You're talking the iron core transformers downlights.
Mate.
The old ones.
Oh, shit, yeah.
Yeah, wow.
The proper ones.
Yeah.
Or so many people wanted their garages wired, power put into their garages, shit like that. Mm. We got a lot of jobs that were rewires as well. So I was working weekends doing these, which was fine. Got busy and started to build up the business. So I had other people come and work with me and give me a hand of a weekend pulling cables in and stuff like this that were other Board of Works blokes for extra coin. Anyway, a couple of other guys were looking to get out of the board as well, and that was Cos Martone and Johnny Cameron. John's a fitter, Cosy was another electrician.
Is this related to Lou Martone?
Cosy's Lou's younger brother, yes.
Right, gotcha.
Yes. Lou being a legend in the Board of Works era, I believe. So, yeah, Cosy and John, in the end, I was really happy to get out because, one, I was getting a severance package. So someone was giving me a lot of money that I walked out with, I think, at that time, I think it was about 60 grand, 61,000 because of...
And back in the 90s.
Oh, shit, yeah.
Wow.
Mate, my severance, with change, bought a third of an acre block on top of a hill in Eltham.
That is eye-watering.
So
there are poor people in their 20s,
Yep.
or even younger,
Yep.
crying listening to that.
Oh,
wow.
It was ridiculous. I still remember a bloke. He was our admin guy, Peter Thompson. Fantastic bloke, really a funny guy. Mm. Anyway, I remember Peter telling me this because he used to have the checks to be handed to people that were being made redundant.
Yeah.
And he went home one Friday because he had to go and do all the Thursday because he was doing the redundancies on the Friday. And he had a bag. And he said he went home and poured this bag onto his kitchen table. And it was all the checks for the redundancy. I wouldn't have a clue how much it was.
Yeah.
And he said to his wife, if we could just have a look at this, and it was a pile of checks, there was a couple of $1 million there. Pretty easy. In checks.
Change lives.
And the next day he would be going to depots and saying, thanks David, that's your redundancy and here's your check. And that was it.
Wow.
And I still remember Pete Thompson telling us that story where he had these checks sitting on his kitchen table, sitting at home, said to his wife, I think his wife might have tried to maybe slip a couple off the side. But as I said, there's so many fantastic people and he was one.
So
out of the
you
board.
got your severance, and then you've
Yep.
gotten into Jonoco, and that is the origin of the name Jonoco,
Correct.
correct? Yeah.
So lots and lots of people ask, where did the name, how did you come up with that name?
Yeah.
So for those, and you probably see that, is John, Noel, Cos.
Super original. I like it. I
It's
love
not that hard. Like, when some people, you say, yeah, it's pretty easy. You're dealing with John, Noel and Cos.
Yeah.
Oh. And as I always like to say, it's the rose between the thorns. And I can say that now too because those two gentlemen are retired. Got them to retirement.
So I do want to get to more recently what's happened with Jonoco. Because there's been a bit of
shift.
a shift. But so Jonoco, what would you say Jonoco does?
So when we started originally, the intention was we had an idea that the contractors would come in with a core group of people, but they would have ebbs and flows in work, and we would be there to subcontract to them. It was always the aim. Mm-hmm. Anyway, there was a clause written in regards to you couldn't come back and work for 2 years and crap like that, but that got shanked out by other people who challenged it, and legally it didn't hold water. So in the end, we were doing all sorts of things. So the three of us, Cosy had his own business, I had my own business, and John just worked with us.
Yeah.
But John picked up jobs and we were painting houses, we did bathroom renovations, because John was very handy tiling and all of this sort of stuff. We'd go and do the electrical work. We were doing work for a builder, Pacific West Development, I think it was.
So you did.
So Western Pacific Development it was. So
I understand Jonoco to be the water industry experts. But this is
for the first 2 years. No, for the first 2 years we were doing houses, garages, anything that came in. That's what was happening.
Wow.
But then we kept touch with people who were at that time with Transfield, because they had Melbourne Water contract, and Siemens, because Siemens had a lot of work, Melbourne Water and Southeast Water. So we were keeping our contacts, because a lot of people we work with had gone to the contractors. So it wasn't until particularly a couple of times where a boss at Transfield, they had issues at Kew Pump Station with some ACBs there. We were based at Kew, used to be based at Kew Pump Station. Cosy was the ACB guru.
Oh, gotcha.
Yep. So they rang one day and said, oh, we need you to come out and fix this for us, Cos. No worries. So that was sort of a foot in the door, and we're able to send them an invoice for time and stuff like this, which was really good. And then they said, oh, they need another fitter up at Winnicky. So John went up there for 2 weeks. That turned into 4 years, I think, he was up there for. Gee. So, and this back in the day, John was driving around in a Ford panel van.
Oh, the old panel.
I was driving around in the blue E20, I think mine was, and Cosy was belting around in a Holden shuttle van.
Never heard of it.
Yeah,
and is that like a Kia Pregio? Is that
not as good?
Not as good.
So, but yeah, so we were. We then started to make contact with more people like that. Then there would be capital jobs that they wanted done, and this was through people that we knew. And one of the first ones was a bloke, Graham Field, who was a instro from Brooklyn, but he was one of the bigger managers, and he was a manager at Siemens at the time. So he got us, and we knew him well, and we'd been pestering him a bit. So he got us to quote some jobs. We won a few jobs for them. We went and did the jobs, and this was putting in highly technical new age stuff called multi-trades.
Oh yeah,
they were cutting edge.
Oh,
yeah,
I hate
they were cutting edge at the time, and we started doing that sort of work. And then when people went on leave, they needed more people. So in the end, we were just contracting back our labour, purely Cosy, John, and I as tradies, back to them. So, you know, I spent, when we were dealing with Siemens, I spent, I reckon, probably 6 months down at Werribee on the farm, and we used to do all the maintenance on the aerators. So that meant in a boat on the sewage lagoon, zooming around to the aerators, and then setting up a gantry and lifting.
Glorious.
Oh,
No.
yeah, that was fun.
Yeah.
There was some funny shit come out of that.
So for those uninitiated to the water industry, right? So, of course, I've been working alongside Yarra Valley Water for some time in that contractor space. I would say Jonoco falls into the category of a premium contractor. And you've been able to get that name, and I say that genuinely, you've obviously been able to get that name throughout the industry somehow. What do you think has made you have such a good reputation amongst water industry professionals?
Went to a lunch a while ago with a lot of past Border Works people. And it was based on the conversation I had with a guy I hadn't seen for a long time. And he said, the one thing was, there was no place you would ever get as good a training. So you were trained to do things properly, and to do it properly the first time. Obviously, back in the board days, time wasn't of an issue. No, but you still went and did your job and you did it properly. But then the learnings changed because we were always guided in the Border Works. You always had more senior people teaching you properly. The first one was, I went through and did an apprenticeship. Since 1990, realistically, the amount of apprentices that have been put through by the major contractors is frankly crap.
Oh, I do want to touch on this.
So, and that is detrimental to the industry as a whole, but all of the trades as a whole as well.
Yeah.
And it's so, because we had that good training, that's what we put across. Because he'd been a tradie for quite a few years, John more because he was older, and I'd been a tradie for 10 years when I came out. So we had a good rounding. We were lucky enough that when we were working with Siemens, that Siemens put with us a lot of the time. They were really good. They did take apprentices in at the start, and that's where most of our current employees come from. Like one of the guys out there at the moment, Simon, he was an apprentice when we were working for Siemens out of Southeast Water. So he got put with Cozzy and I to do some work sometimes. When he finished his apprenticeship, Siemens, being a big business, didn't have a job for him, and it takes a long time to organise it. Yeah. But Simon went out and worked for himself for a little while. We were looking for somebody. He came and subbed to us for a while. Then he took a full-time job, and I think he's been with us now he's been with us as a full-time employee for 23 years.
Wow.
And he was a subby before that as well.
Yeah, wow.
We had another guy left us last year. Last year. He'd been with us for 23 years. And he was another one who was an apprentice, and they didn't have a job. So we'd been working with them. So we'd been training them. So we gave them a job, and they stayed with us. So we've got quite a few. If you go through, we've got Simon. Adrian was the one who left. Ian, Nathan, they've all been apprentices with us, finished their apprenticeship and still been with us. And these are guys now that are, 10 years plus, comfortably.
So you essentially attribute your good reputation to quality workmanship?
Correct.
I mean, I would probably argue there's a bit more on top of that. You obviously give the cherry on top of your service, a lot of the time. But I've seen firsthand that can be to your detriment.
Correct.
What have you seen as water boards have progressed within this privatisation landscape we're in? Why is it that someone offering a premium service might not get jobs or something like that?
Because contrary to popular belief, it's all about the dollar. It does not matter what they say, and they have all these intentions, but at the end of the day, push comes to shove, it's the dollar. And you're right, because we've trained a lot of our guys, and the people we've got here are smart people. We try to make sure that we employ smart people.
Yeah.
With the right attitude. They've got to fit the mould as well, because maybe Jonoco's mould's a little bit different to other businesses. But we've got smart people that are conscientious and want to learn. One of our Sparkies at the moment is unbelievable. He goes home and he's doing stuff all of the time, well outside of what's normally required.
Can I guess who that might be? Is that Joel?
It is. Yeah. Pretty much so.
Shout out to Joel.
Mate. He is unbelievable.
Yeah.
But yeah, the guys we've got, I'm only talking like the electrical side, mechanically has been very much the same. We've been blessed to be able to pick up some, due to I will say, the mistakes of the major contractors that have come in, we've been able to pick up blokes that they didn't pick up because they thought they were, I don't know, too old or a troublemaker or whatever. You know, we picked up the likes of, well, close to home with you, with Yarra, when that changed, when it went to Ventia.
Correct.
And we were lucky to pick up Chris Arthur, Renato, Chris McEwen, Roy Chandrasekhara, the smiling assassin.
Yeah.
One of the, and you're talking, those 4 blokes there, mate, smart as.
But
And
also, how many years of experience have you just picked up?
Well,
Insane.
when all of a sudden we found these blokes didn't get jobs, shit, okay, come and work for us.
Yeah.
And the question Cosy had at the time, so what are we going to get them to do? I don't fucking care. These blokes, you can't let them go.
Yeah.
And the proof was in the pudding. Wasn't long before Chris was back, Roy was back, Renato was back. And
You just change your shirt, really, don't you?
and we were subbing them back.
Yeah.
And and we've had exactly the same. It's happened now with Wood Group, with the bloke Norm Long, gun fitter, really good fitter, smart bloke. Anyway, doesn't get taken, but then they need somebody. We can provide them a bloke who knows the plant better than the people that they've got. He's gone back. He goes back. He's actually running a crew for them now.
Oh, wow.
Not at the moment. He's in Greece at the moment, but he's gone back. But they take them back like that, subbing. Then they have the audacity to offer them a job.
Oh, really?
Which to me, that's shit.
Yeah.
Like, you know, Norm's had job offers.
Yeah. And
what I love is the attitude of the guys, and this is part of what we look for in people, is commitment, things where they'll make the right decisions. Norm turned around and said, well, you didn't want me before. Jonoco want me, and I like them, and I'm staying. Roy was another one. Chris McEwen was another one. They all were offered permanent employment more than once by the major contractor, but didn't jump, which shows a bit of dedication and loyalty. And loyalty. There's a lot to be said for loyalty.
Very hard to gain, particularly within businesses nowadays. It seems like, you know, there is no loyalty, you get told, and you can just jump from one to the other. But
it's like respect nowadays. You don't have to earn respect. Apparently, when you start a job, you have respect of everybody, even though you haven't done anything.
That's it.
Yeah, it's not the way I understand respect. I respect people as a person, but not from a skill set at all. So
I do know, speaking on Roy's behalf, that he was very conflicted when he was asked about joining, like you said, multiple times. And he said, no, I'm going to stay with Jonoco, which is, you know, obviously a credit to yourself and the Jonoco team, is that you've been able to breed a culture of loyalty within your business.
100%, yeah.
And as we said, unfortunately before, the dollar is, you know, the almighty dollar will control what these organisations do, but all you can do is control what you do internally. And on that, you have more recently done a fairly big change. There's been a lot of changes in the last 2 years for you guys.
Oh, yeah.
You've moved location. You've had some leadership changes. Yeah. You've had some leadership changes. And you've also diversified.
Correct.
In a very short period of time.
Yes.
Can you speak to those 3 things?
All right. So, virtually all of this started at the start of COVID, and that was because he was getting close to retirement, and looked like he was going to go in the June. I think COVID started in 2019, 2020?
2020, March-ish.
March-ish, yeah.
Yep.
So, because he was going to retire in the June of that year, when COVID hit and we got locked down, he said, I'm not retiring because if I go home, I'm just going to sit round. He and his wife were intending on going to Europe for a holiday later in the year, but got kiboshed. So Cosy hung around. So there was a shift there. We were lucky because we're an essential service. We got lumped into the essential service because we had a maintenance contract with South East Water at the time. So that kept us busy. So we were hugely lucky that way. Our employees were very lucky that way as well, because they were able to just keep going. There was some change in how we had to do things, but they still had full-time employment. So, Cosy was looking to retire. Got to sort of as we got to the end of COVID, Cosy was looking to retire more so. At the same time, we got notified that we're being compulsory acquired by the Suburban Rail Loop Authority.
Your factory?
Where we were based at Notting Hill, because where we were is going to be the Monash Railway Station for the new underground loop.
Gotcha.
So that was part of it. All of a sudden, then we had a few blokes leave. Cosy retired. Then we had a new admin officer come in who we employed. The whole system was changed from our old Excel spreadsheet way that we did things, and we used a fantastic thing called Xero and Aeroflow and all these platforms that we just didn't know about.
Yeah.
So we had to change the whole operational system within the business. At the same time, starting to organise about moving. At the same time, John decided he was getting close. He should have retired probably before Cosy, but John decided to retire. We're in the middle of a big job with Melbourne Water and John Holland at the time, and we'd lost the experience of our mech engineer because he'd left because of the loss of the maintenance contract at South East.
No, you didn't touch on that. Yeah,
that happened at the same time. So all of a sudden we had all these people that were fantastic tradies working with us, and they had to move on because we just didn't have the work anymore for them, and they all went to the major contractors that got the contract. So at the same time, all these things happened. So we managed the Cosy retiring, John then retired, shift from the contract, organised the move. I must have sat and got drunk one night and decided, geez, I think I know what our good plan is. So then we procured 2 other businesses that were similar to us, one being Catholic Plumbing and the other one being PSE Contracting, which is an electrical contractor. So I thought it'd be a good idea to buy them. So an aggressive takeover was put in place, which meant having to wrestle Dicko. But that then started to diversify. That was the real start of the diversification in the business. I was looking at it from the treatment plants we were building. We'd lost a lot of mechanical experience in doing small bore PVC pipe work, plastic pipe work.
Yep.
And Catholic Plumbing, who subbed to us anyway, a lot of the time, that was the aim for getting them in. They also do butt welding.
Poly welding.
Butt welding.
I don't know what butt welding is. Give me the...
It's so if you have a look in the mirror tonight, have a look at your butt, there's a big crack in it, and we can weld it for you. No, it's poly welding.
It is poly welding.
But yeah, they call it. It's butt welding.
Okay.
So the other reason I love the water industry, the words.
Yeah.
Butt welding, flange.
One of my favourites.
Flange.
Pass
Love
the flange.
So the whole shift changed in the business where took a phone call from Dicko, and it was about a particular job, and they wanted a lot of big welding and they weren't normally doing it. And he said, but now we've got all these people, if I come into the business, do we do it? We said, yeah, no worries. So we did that, bought a machine that was worth a shitload because we thought that would be a better option. So we've invested in the poly welding part of the business, which is starting to pay off now with work with Delcon and different people, some on the railway crossings with John Holland. So that's one of the big diversifications in the business. As we're going through all of that at the same time, a business that was a competitor of us, CTech, was shutting its doors.
And they are, what do they do, sorry?
They do water treatment, water quality, chlorination, predominantly chlorination, but they delve into other treatment as well. But predominantly, and the bit we liked about that was they had a current contract with Yarra at the time. So we were very interested, and we knew the owner, Derek, and Dean, his son, who ran the business. So we contacted him and said, look, we'd be interested in, if you're interested in selling, we'd be interested in purchasing, which we did, and has proven to be fantastic. We've been able to employ, they had 5 employees, which we kept, and they are absolutely fantastic people. really dedicated to what they do, and the shift into us has been really good. You know, as I said, the group of people, you sometimes worry, you know, once you start getting more people and more people, but it's just fitted beautifully. And then since then, we've been able to grow it further. Pete Smith, who is now one of the new directors, because in all of that with Cozzy and John, that was them selling out their shares of the business, no longer directors. I was a sole director for a while, and then Paul Dick, Kathy, he's come on as a director, and Pete Smith, PSC Contracting, he's come on as a director as well. So now now not me, but now there's 3 partners in the business again, which a lot of people back in the day when we started said, "You're idiots, 3, it'll never work."
Hard.
It has worked. Mate, I can't see how you could do it with 2, because if you don't agree, you don't have there's no umpire. When you've got 3, we've got rules about how we do things. Like anything we do has to be a unanimous decision. So you have to debate things to get it so that all of us agree.
Yeah.
Because you never want a situation where 2 of you agree and 1 doesn't, but we do it anyway. And if it falls over, the one who said it, he comes in and says, "Told you so."
Yeah.
You don't want that situation, not in a business.
Yeah.
So yes, I'm really lucky to have those 2 come on board. And yeah, the business, as you said, is diversified. We're doing a lot of poly welding now. We've employed another 2. We've sent away 3 of our own blokes to go and do the poly welding training as well. So it's become very much a core part of the business. So where we were historically a mechanical and electrical maintenance and service provider, that's the heart of Jonoco. That's the core. If you said you're going back to your core values, that's what it is. We're going out and we're measuring motors and testing tightness of screws and stuff. That's what it is. So that's the core of it. But now we've been able to grow onto it with Kathy, because they're a plumbing-based business. We've added plumbing, poly welding, and then with the addition of C-Tech, water quality, which when we look at a lot of the jobs that we do, means that our clients can engage us, and they're only engaging one contractor to do a multitude of things on a site.
What I love about the diversification is that it is all within your niche of the water industry. You haven't really branched out. You know what you guys do. You know, you are the water industry, you help the water industry. What is interesting to me is you skimmed over a little bit is that the losing of the Southeast Water contract. So for those that don't understand, winning a contract for one of these water boards is quite a big deal, because it is locked in and you've got a certain amount of time, typically 10-year contracts, or they're 5 with extensions.
5 with extensions generically, yeah.
So they're a big deal. You get to hire a lot of people, you know, you kind of become your family over a long period of time.
Yeah.
You had the Southeast Water, or a part of the Southeast Water contract.
Yep.
Which was a big deal because you were a small player within the industry. And then you lost it for no fault of your own. I know that you, anecdotally, you took that reasonably hard.
Yeah.
What is that, for other tradies that hit these roadblocks within their business, what advice might you have for them when something like this might happen?
That's probably the biggest one ever, obviously, because of what it was worth to the contract, to our business, I should say.
Yeah.
But there's been a lot of times we've gone and quoted works or gone for something and haven't won it, all right? We've had a couple of jobs that turned to shit in a big way. You know, we've had 2 particular jobs over our journey that have been bad for the business, you know what I mean? For anybody, at the end of the day, if you don't get it, you quote a job, you don't get it, you move on. When you do have a job and then you lose it again, it feels shit when you lose, 100%, like it really does. Because sometimes you may not agree with why you lost it, but at the end of the day, there'll be something else will pop up the next day. In the industry itself, even though we compete against a lot of other people, we all look after each other. You know, there are some businesses out there that have been our major competitors for 20 years. Yet you're still very interested in the people in the business to make sure that they're okay as people. Because the next day, one of the things is the industry is never going to close down. So there's always another opportunity comes up, then another opportunity somewhere else. And someone will ring you. Or you can ring somebody and all of a sudden you'll find that you'll be getting work. So, especially nowadays too, because the stress on smaller businesses to be maintaining an income can be hard, really hard. Yeah, we have times where all of a sudden you start to think, shit, we've got to pay this, we've got to pay this, we've got to pay this, and you're forecasting, oh, shit, how much work have we got and what are we expecting to come in? So the money's always the driver. As I said before, the money's always the driver because that's what it's about. There's a lot of other things that are very important, but that's probably the biggest driver. If your business isn't earning money, well, you haven't got a business. It's pretty simple.
Yeah.
You can not have loyalty, but your business can still run.
Yeah.
You can not have respect, and the business can still run. You can not have tools, but you could probably find a way that your business could still. Do you know what I mean? But you don't have money, it's good night, Irene.
Okay.
So, for people who are venturing out, and you're probably a very good example of that, where when you venture out into it, is give it a red hot crack. How you've set yourself up to the start and you've thought your way through it has been really good.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
But also too, so what did you do? Oh yeah, you rang us. Oh, this is what I'm doing, da-da-da. Fantastic, mate. Yeah, come along. Come and do this. Now, you're not being giving anything for nothing. You're actually coming and doing something that we need to be done. And mate, there is a shitload of other businesses around that would do the same if you rang them. So there's always it's going to sound dicky, but there's always a silver lining to everything.
Yeah.
There is always another opportunity the next day. You never, the way we've tried to operate all of the time is be upfront with payments and do all of the right things and all of this, because Cozzy and I, the one thing we always wanted to make sure was when we went home, you could sleep at night.
Yeah.
You never did anything the wrong, because it will come around and bite you on the arse. Yeah. So that's probably the one thing is, don't be worried. There's always something that'll come up.
So essentially one door closes, another one opens.
Does.
Particularly in the water industry, like you said, people always shit, so there's always going to be someone to clean the shit up.
Put it this way, there's never going to be the front page is never going to say June the 30th, the water industry's closing down.
Exactly.
It's not going to happen.
So you're 32 years in the industry.
Yep.
Throughout that period of time, you guys have operated on very basic spreadsheets. At some stage, you did have some sort of website that you were running, right?
Yeah.
Some of us looking from the outside in, how did these guys operate? But there are businesses that are just operating on paper sometimes, right?
It's the pictures you have of people.
Yeah. We won't get too deep into that. So recently, you did employ me to do your website.
Yep.
Right. So,
of which he did a marvellous job.
Well, it's not finished yet. It's not finished.
But it's still looking really good already.
It's looking all right. So, what of the other tech that you use has helped you build and streamline your business?
We've had constant inquiries from various people over the years about advertising our business. We never have. And the reason is because we've been lucky enough from a word of mouth from our early days of our contacts. And obviously we were able to help build our name. A critical thing that we had to get to, and this is years ago, but one of the focuses that I spoke to John and Cozzy about was we have to get it from being, ring and get Cozzy, ring and get John. It had to be, if you get a Jonoco bloke, you're right. Yeah. It didn't have to be a name of a person, it was the business. So we were lucky that over the time, because of the people that we employed, that morphed into, and I hear from other people, they say, if you see a bloke come in and he's got Jonoco on his resume, you're pretty much, you're going to take him.
Yeah.
If he's been with us for long enough, you know what I mean? So we did do the website when all of a sudden websites became in vogue, and we did a website about inquiries and stuff, and I don't think it ever got updated from when it first got landed.
I did see it looked like it was the .com boom. That's where it
Oh,
came
mate.
from.
Put it this way, I think it was developed on a Commodore 64. So, yeah, and we never really used it. It's like a lot of things over time, electronically or as things have evolved. It's like quality systems. You go to get a quality system, and then sometimes it's taken years before it's actually become the rule. Websites, yeah, people would look at it, but it wasn't really much. Most people still dealt in hard copy things, whereas now the age is a lot more that way. Hence why we knew we'd have to update it, because when we were looking at contracts, the clients now look at websites and they expect to see a up-to-date
Online presence.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
Whether it's generating you anything or what's in it, it doesn't matter. They're after seeing more. What have you done? I think the key is the two bits that they're interested in is what do you do, and what have you done.
I think it's two of the most important things, particularly for service-based businesses.
Is yeah.
Yeah.
That, a lot of the time they don't really care about who the picture is of or anything like that, but they want to know, well, shit, do they do what we want them to do? Oh, wow, they work on chlorination treatment plants. Oh, they do sewer pump station repairs, or they look at what you can do, but then they want to see, well, okay, what have they done and where have they done it?
Yeah.
Because all of a sudden you could say, yes, we've built treatment plants. Melbourne Water say, wow, they look really good, but the treatment plants you built were for a swimming pool.
Yeah,
You know what I
exactly,
mean?
yeah.
They want to see,
Yeah.
as I said, they're the two bits I believe.
So you also run Arrowflow as well for
Yep.
your project management.
Yep.
And then was there anything else? What do you?
Zero's our
Xero.
accountancy or accounting package.
Yeah.
And the good thing is both Xero and Arrowflow talk to each other.
Yeah, it is a fantastic project management software, Arrowflow. It's really good.
It is. It's big.
Yeah, it's a lot. There's a lot to
of
it.
stuff in it.
It is. Yeah, it's one of those things.
Yeah.
Where it's got a lot in it, and it's what you use it for.
They've been, to deal with too, Arrowflow have been really good in
Yeah.
regards to questions or even some minor changes. And where they are, they've been really accommodating. So,
Now, I wanted to touch on apprentices, and we
Yep.
mentioned very briefly
Yep.
about how difficult it is to get apprentices within the water industry. And that's typically because of the way that these contracts are drafted, because you really are maximised for profit essentially at the end of the day.
correct?
And they are very stringent. They are KPIs within these. And the Southeast Water one compared to the Yarra Valley one was quite different from what I understood.
Oh, we were lucky. So to backtrack before we go on to say with the apprentices,
Yeah.
to get the Southeast Water contract was unbelievable because it was the first time a small business, not with thousands of employees and on the stock market and internationally owned, had a major mechanical and electrical contract with any of the water utilities in Melbourne. So anything to do with Melbourne Water, City West Water, Yarra or Southeast. They'd always gone to a tier one. Historically, they'd always gone to a big business. I think probably the closest to a small business would have been the first one when they had O'Donnell Griffin.
Oh, ODG was doing
ODG had one part of a contract, I think, in the West or something. But that, other than that, it's always been Transfield, Siemens, Wood Group, Bill Fingerberger, Abbey Group, you know what I mean? Like all Lend Lease, Service Street, all big businesses that have had historically had them. For Southeast Water, and I still to this day cannot thank two particular people at Southeast Water for giving us the opportunity. And that was John Hariba and Don Raymond, because they actually understood that we could deliver what was required. And they did it a bit, as you said, we got part of it. They split it in two. and we got half, and Lend-Lease got the other half. And their plan was, well, if we fall over, Lend-Lease will they'll take it over. That was their backup.
Gotcha.
Yeah, which, that's smart.
Yeah.
But I still to this day remember when they first released the expression of interest, it was at the Moorabbin Town Hall. So all the contractors rolled in there to, want to hear, what are they doing? Siemens aren't taking it anymore, it's going out, what's going on? I went over to this thing with Graham Field, he was working with us at the time, and Graham and I left there and we're driving back and we're both astounded because the contract could not have been written up any better for our business, for the size. If they had given it to one, it was too big for us.
Yep.
But to cut it in half fit us perfectly. For what it was M&E, and they hadn't added any other bits of anything. So it was perfect for us. And we drove back and said, wow, it's been written for us. And as I said, those two gents, John and Don, they were two of the biggest advocates for us in the contract in getting it. I'm happy to say that from what we got told, over the 9 years that we had it, we outperformed the bigger contractor in the PLT and the KPIs.
PLT?
Performance League Table. So it's like KPIs. It's a rating on particular things to do with a bit more commercially and administratively as well.
Yep.
But yeah, we outperformed them from what we got told. We were never actually given here's a comparator, but we were verbally told. So we were happy with that, but at the end of the day, so in doing that, we questioned about, with apprentices during it as well, and John and Don were great advocates, and they were quite happy. You just bring apprentices on, no worries.
Wow.
And you just put them on jobs, that's fine, no issue. So predominantly, and then that went into the era of, with the manager who was there, Lawrence, he was fantastic as well. Really good operator, very sensible person, very common sense. And he was the same. South East Water actually did really back us up to have apprentices. So we started off, we had a couple of mechanical apprentices at the start that ended up finishing their time and staying with us. We had electrical apprentices go through. So it was quite good. Not the number that was needed though.
Yeah.
When you look across the industry, let's go back to the Board of Works. Every year, there was 4 electricians taken on.
Wow.
So at any time in the Board of Works, there was 16 electrical mechanical apprentices. 4 first years, 4 second years, 4 third years, 4 fourth years.
Wow.
And that was just the way they did it. They had apprentice welders, they had apprentice fitter and turners, they had apprentice toolmakers, they had apprentice everything.
Yeah.
And it was just heaps of them going through. The electricians, that didn't include instrumentation. That was a separate group. I think it was 2 instros going through every year.
Oh, wow.
I think at that stage, 1 or 2. So you can imagine the volume.
Yeah.
Because they were self-populating their own people. When you take that out for the best part of 30 years of those amount of people not being trained, that's a huge hole.
It's a huge gap.
Huge.
I wholeheartedly think that it should come from the Melbourne Waters, the Yarra Valleys, that there is a mandate on apprentices, and then the cost of those apprentices is subsidised by them.
Should be.
It is within their interest to make sure that there are apprentices coming through the industry.
Yeah, but that's part of the problem now with the structure of the industry itself, and that is, well, yep, you get the apprentices, but as far as having the right tradespeople, that's your problem, Tier 1 contractor.
Yeah.
That's your problem to have them. That's not our problem. We're giving you a contract. You just do the work accordingly.
Yeah.
And probably what disappoints me is so many times, there are so many things that we hear that people say. We've had a couple of people in ours that use the terminology, yeah, see that? They talk the talk,
Yeah.
they don't walk the walk. And that's the disappointing thing.
So what advice would you have for somebody looking to get into the water industry? They're listening to this thinking, this is pretty cool. It's fairly different. And this actually, I want to make a point. This would be for any other tradie as well, for
100%,
specifically for a fitter and a sparky, mechanical fitter, because you can't just go, you can, if you're lucky enough, you can't just go and be a house basher. You can't just go be domestic and commercial and come into the water industry thinking that you were going to do the same thing.
Correct.
It is, in my opinion, a completely different trade. So what advice do you have for those apprentices and fully qualified people outside of the industry wanting to get in? How do you think they could get in?
A lot of the time it's going to be their own legwork. That's the first thing, because you need to then be able to contact, if you want to get into the water industry, is fantastic to work in. It really is. And there's a huge amount of different things to be able to do.
Lots of variety.
Oh, huge.
Yeah.
You could start off, and we've had people that have started off as tradies, but have ended up being operators or all sorts of different things.
Yeah.
So when you look at that, if you wanted to try and get into it, to get into the water industry, you need to be contacting or following the utilities, so that's Southeast, Greater Western, Yarra, Melbourne Water, finding out who their major contractors are, then getting in touch with the major contractors to try and get an in there. So as an example, one of the ones that has taken on a lot of apprentices, which is fantastic, is program maintenance.
Great.
So
Awesome.
down at Southeast Waters area, and I think they've taken them on at Melbourne Water as well. So they've taken apprentices on, which is great. So you'd need to get in touch with program maintenance, because then sometimes program maintenance, I don't know how they facilitate it. We historically have always taken on the apprentices ourselves and indentured them to us, because we felt that's more of a commitment to the apprentice.
I like it. Yeah.
Instead of coming out of a training college.
Yep.
The big push from the government nowadays is now everything's got to go through the training colleges, which makes it easier for all the documentation and the rebates and everything like that.
Okay.
So we now use, we've got an apprentice at the moment, electrical apprentice at the moment. He's with McKay.
Yep.
So, and we've used different ones. We've used Serena Russo and different ones over time. We had a labour hire mob, TLR. They provided us with a mechanical apprentice, female mechanical apprentice, which mechanical apprentices are like hen's teeth.
Yeah.
So, yeah, a lot of the time, if you want to get into it, you've got to do a lot of legwork yourself to find out the avenues where the apprentices are being taken.
Yeah.
So you might go to program and say, all of our apprentices come through McKay.
Yeah.
And I said, I don't know, but that's what it might be. They might say, no worries, look, yeah, we've got another intake in 3 months. So if you've done most people, if they want to do an apprenticeship now, have done the preschool pre-apps.
Pre-apps, yeah. Yep.
Already. So, and some of the time to us, we don't put a great deal of value on whether they've done the pre-app or not.
Yeah.
Because sometimes, I got told, I came out of a high school, I got told at the Board of Works, they prefer high school students to trade school students, because high school students have got no idea of trade stuff. Whereas if you come from a tech school, they'd done a little bit of trade work,
Yeah.
and sometimes they come in thinking they knew everything, whereas us high school students, we had no idea. So
Open to new ideas. Yeah.
and still don't.
Yeah.
So, and still don't. But yeah, for apprentices now, that's the best one. We still get some cold calls every now and then. Oh, look, yeah, looking for an apprenticeship. A lot of the time, the ones we've had have come word of mouth recommended, because nobody recommends somebody if they're a dud.
You hope not anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think we covered a fair bit in this podcast. Now I want to get on to, I've got a segment in this podcast called the Tech Tool of the Week. So can you tell me...
Are you looking for a spot on front bar?
Yeah.
Because you want to try and get rid of Sam Pang's drip tray. Haven't you seen that?
I haven't seen... No, I haven't. No.
You need to see drip tray.
Okay.
This sounds like drip tray. All right, go.
Well, Tech Tool of the Week, right? So what is
Tech
something
tool, yeah.
that you use, an online tool that you might use, that you could recommend?
I thought you meant, like my tech tool of the week would be Paul Dick.
Yeah.
He's a technician and he's a tool.
I get it now.
Sorry. Okay, go.
What online tool
Yep.
that you use? It could be an app, it could be anything, a website, it could be something that you use specifically. We've already touched on Aeroflow. I know that's something you guys use.
Shit, all of that sort of stuff. Oh, there's a multitude. Probably the one we'd use most is Aeroflow because it's so vast. Like Aeroflow we're using for, it's asset management, it's quoting, it's invoicing, it's project management, it's timesheets. Everything is in the one.
In the side of it.
Yeah. The one we used to use, actually the one I would say, we don't use it now, but I would recommend it to it, is Apponate. Apponate.
Which is what?
We used it, and it was for forms and documents and stuff like this, but it was an app, so it worked on your phone really well. So you're not going in and looking at the web-based one, which is shit to read.
Yeah.
Apponate was absolutely fantastic. We would still use it. The only reason we don't is it wouldn't talk to Aeroflow.
Yeah.
So, and Aeroflow sort of does what it did, not as good.
Really?
Yeah. Apponate was absolute cracker.
So what am I putting down? I'm gonna say.
I'd go Apponate.
Apponate.
Yeah.
Apponate. There you
Apponate.
go. The people of Apponate. There you go.
Yeah, Apponate was fantastic.
So coming to the end of the podcast, but I do want to know, Noel, what is
Collingwood. I thought you
No,
were
no,
going to
absolutely
go for.
not. No. We're not going there.
Okay.
What is it that you like doing on the weekend to relax when you're not at Jonoco? I do know you bought some sort of golf club in here somewhere. Where was it?
I don't play golf that often now.
Don't you?
Nah, no time. Well, just a lot of the time, I just like dicking around at home.
Yeah.
Mucking about trying to restore a 54 Mercedes at the moment.
Really?
Yeah. So that's just starting to tick off. But to get to that stage, I've had to do like fix up my shed and stuff like that. So it's going to sound I don't know, unexciting, but I love just going down the backyard into my shed. Dog's usually with me, radio's on, and just pottering, fixing some stuff and doing bits and pieces. And as I said, trying to fix my shed so that I can strip down this Mercedes completely.
Okay. Well, that's it. Noel, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the podcast.
No worries, mate. Thank you very much, Listy. You did scare the shit out of me when you said about this podcast. I wondered what it was going to be about. But it's been very good, mate.
Job.
As I said, if you need him, engage him. He does a bloody shit hot job.
Appreciate that. Thank you very much.
No.
Thank you for being on the podcast.
No worries, mate. It's been grouse.
Cheers.
Righto, you legend. That was Noel McKay from Jonoco. I really do appreciate him coming on. I know he's a busy man. Hey, make sure that you are liking and leaving a review on this podcast so I can get more legends like Noel on. Plus, make sure you share this with your mum. I'm David List. This has been the Digital Tradie podcast. And until next time, make sure you're creating some legendary content.